I want to start out with some things that were mentioned on the call. It sounds like investments are going to continue to increase. But what did we learn about how successful their massive investments into hiring human content moderators has been in terms of fake news, abuse, manipulation?
Well, they claim they've made a lot of progress. It's much better than before, but obviously it's not out of the woods yet. Now, you have to remember that going into the quarter, the expectations were very low. I mean, we've seen the stock reaction in the last 2 months. What the volatility that you saw was essentially just, the worries about how much growth is going to slow, how much expenses are going to grow. And then if you look at the 4Q guidance that they gave, it was a little better than expected. So that's why you saw that whiplash happening. But what we are seeing right now is Facebook is going through a transition here. They're transitioning to newsfeed, from newsfeed to live stories, better monetization of video in terms of pricing and things like that. So this transition is what's going to cause this expense uncertainty and growth uncertainty in 2019. And so 2019 is going to be that uncertain year, if you may, from those two angles.
And speaking of that transition, I want us to take a quick listen to what Zuckerberg said on the call about this expense issue.
I want you to know that looking out beyond 2019, I know that we need to make sure our costs and revenue are better matched over time, and that's something that I'm focused on as well.
Now, David, it seems like Facebook is forever going to be caught between Wall Street and society. Has it shown that it can properly grow revenue and profits while properly dealing with the societal issues of undermining real news and discussion and democracy in society?
It absolutely has not shown that. I think there's no evidence that they are really directly addressing that. I don't even know what it means that our revenue and profits ought to be more, revenue and expenses ought to be more matched going forward. That's a weirdly opaque sort of formulation. I think that we are just beginning to see, outsiders, all the different ways that Facebook can undermine social dialogue. Facebook itself doesn't seem to be discovering any of these things on its own and telling us about it, or to the degree they do, they just hide it, and they're extremely reactive. They are making progress. They're spending a lot of money, but I think we are just at the beginning of an incredibly painful, long journey of trying to remediate the problems that this service is bringing on society, even as they're raking in the dough through stories and all these things they're doing. More power to them on the money side, but they better solve these social problems or they're in big social trouble.
And what is the biggest test for Facebook next? Is it the next earnings call, or is it this upcoming midterm election?
No, I think the midterm election in the United States is important, but look, there's elections all over the world. WhatsApp was a major factor in the election of this ultra-right-wing new leader in Brazil, Bolsonaro. His son was kicked off WhatsApp because of abuse of WhatsApp. The way WhatsApp is being used is a major new force globally. So it's not, we Americans tend to focus too much on the U.S. election, although it's hugely important. And increasingly, it looks like Facebook manipulation by the Russians may have been the thing that put Trump over the top. But anyway, there's innumerable issues. We have to see what happens next week. We also have to keep our eye out globally. I wish Facebook could do it for us because it's their service. They did this to us and they're not remediating it. I know I sound fairly harsh, but I feel harsh.